Alright, I basically just released part 1 of the balance changes. 3 nations have already been covered and the second part is just about to come right here. The next 3 nations, part 2 of 3. So again, I will just get into the detail of the changes of the next update that is about to come in about a few weeks. And let's just explain how these changes are going to work out for you guys. And I hope you will learn something about one or the other tank. Let's dive into it. So let's actually start right away with that AMX 30B here on the top left. AMX 30B has been an amazing tank, one of my favorites actually among the medium tanks or in general. It is fast, it can do a lot of stuff, it has good DPM, but that will unfortunately change a little bit. Especially on the DPM side, we do see a bit of a nerf. We do see that it does get 6.7 to 7.13 seconds. We do also get a power to rate ratio nerf ever so slightly, but still about 5%. And yeah, that's something that both of these characteristics were really helping this tank, especially as it doesn't have any armor. And that will change there. But also other DPM tanks get some nerfs, some tanks only though, not all of them. So I think the 30B will just lose out in relative strength to them. It does get spall liner provision and reticle calibration on top there, which is meant to be a buff in that regard, but actually I don't think those will be useful at all. Just to point that out here, because spall liner, it protects you from getting HE damage in, but this tank barely ever gets HE'd, maybe one in a couple of games, and it's just neglectable. I'm not even sure if I'm even going to use it, and not just going for the 3% crew mastery provision instead because of the performance on top there. I did like that, so I don't know if I'm going to use it. Reticle calibration getting you some better accuracy, of course. You will lose a repair kit for that. That might be quite helpful, and the accuracy is already very good. So I'm really not sure if this is going to be useful at all, so maybe this is just a straight nerf to this tank. Yeah, 30B just going to lose out on the next update there. Next up, we've got the FTM 50T here, the tier 8 medium tank. It does get a DPM buff, it does get sandbag provision, increasing the hit points by 6%. It's a provision, so you will lose out some other provision slot for that. Also, it gets the improved engine power boost. This is the special speed boost. This is one of my favorite special consumables actually. It's quite helpful for pushing, for running, for relocating in general. I think that will be a nice addition. The FCM is also a great ramming tank. It's quite heavy. So I think that there might be something here that might be really helpful for the FCM, which has been lacking in a while since its release way back then. On to the next one, a tier 10 again, the AMX 50B here. The 50B has had some good times with a 3-shot gun especially. It got nerfed after with a 4-shot gun and bad accuracy. And then it got the reactive armor and an accuracy buff quite recently only. With the equipment changes it also benefited. And now it gets another nerf again, as all the autoloaders are meant to be nerfed here from Wargaming. So accuracy nerf actually 3.7 to 4.4 seconds. Aim time is a lot worse here. Penetration also gets changed, actually only on the HE. It gets an HE penetration buff, but 69. It's just yeah, 69, but it's actually not going to be all too relevant here. So just a nerf to the 50B, unfortunately. AMX M4 then, the premium or collector heavy tank on a French nation. It does get some nice buffs here. The AMX M4 gets a reload time buff, 11.1 second. That's yeah, not a huge difference, but still DPM buff is great. But the main problem with this tank actually is the accuracy. So let's just point that out here straight away. Still, DPM is great and it gets reactive armor on top, decreasing the damage taken by 27% for just about half a minute. So that is going to be very helpful. This tank has a lot of hit points anyways, and I can actually just also show you here what I'm actually doing. Reactive armor is definitely helpful for this kind of tank, allowing it to push in quite nicely. It will be kind of a super heavy then in the near future. So I think that will really benefit with this one. It might also be seen in tournaments. I think that will be a nice change here, although not the most fun tank to me personally. A bit of an armor buff as well, 210 to 220, 28 millimeters there. 20 I think it is, to the frontal plate, so maybe you're getting some more ricochets there, but I doubt that because mostly people can penetrate you with heat anyways. If they are above, if they are beneath, then previously they couldn't penetrate you with AP anyways, apart from the lower plate, which is quite big after all. Next slide already, we are getting the Batchet 25T, my favorite tank all time. I've got like 7.5k games or so on this one already. It was really strong in the recent past with that big autoloader of 3 times 350 damage. The big gun especially does get a big nerf here on the DPM side. Reload time increases a lot actually, and also the dispersion gets a big change here. With the 0.1 to 0.16, that's really big. That's 60% higher dispersion. Not great at all. Also, type main shell, the main shell type does get changed from AP to APCR, which means you lose effective penetration due to shell normalization. Not to get too much into detail there, but it's a penetration nerf there that's not nice to have. Also, before we're talking about the small gun, we have to see that the view range gets nerfed from 285 meters. It was super damn strong on that one, to 265, which is a huge change there. So it won't be the #1 spotting tank anymore. And also it does get an armor change from 60 to 50 millimeters. So you get a few less ricochets off of that frontal plate. Not great at all. But there is some other change for the Batchet, and that is the small gun, which was previously already tempting to go for. It has great DPM, much better DPM actually than the big gun, and it does get some nice buffs. The main reason I did not play the small gun, although I tested it thoroughly and it didn't work out, the main problem there is that it simply had very bad dispersion. And that is getting changed here. The dispersion on the turret rotation is getting changed from 0.16 to 0.12. Quite a big change here, really, if we're seeing that percentage-wise. Also, the aim time does get a big change, a big buff here. And also the reload time in between the shells does get changed from 2.5 to only 2.22. On top of that, just keep in mind it also has the intra-clip boost, which just decreases the intra-clip reload time even further. So I will definitely change to the small gun on the next update and see how it goes. With that one, it might be something like a TVP then. Very nice for flanking around and just still being very nasty, dangerous in the enemy's rear. Although you are just not having that high alpha damage, allowing you to out-trade the enemies like that all too easily anymore. Still, I think that is a fine change here to the Batchet. It won't be useless after this. I'm still going to play it just with another gun then. On to the Foch. The Foch 155 has already been getting some nice changes very recently with the changes to the autoloaders, especially with the tungsten rounds, and it does get some other buff now. Mainly here, the 155mm, the autoloader gun that is, gets a big change from 500 to 560 damage per shot. So times 2, you are just getting 120 damage more off of your clip already. And then you still have the tungsten rounds, which increases the damage by 15% on average, 105 to 125%. So that is definitely going to be very nice, very dangerous to the enemies. Also the reverse speed, yeah, that gets a bit of a nerf here. Terrain crossing capacity gets a bit of a buff, so yeah, some slight mobility changes, adjustments there. So terrain crossing capacity buff means that you are able to accelerate a little bit faster. But at the same time, reverse is getting nerfed, and there's some more mobility changes here. Rotation speed gets a bit of a buff as well. Very good if you're not having a lot of a gun arc to the side, and also if you are having a tank that is not having any turret, of course, like this one definitely is. Then we also see a change to the power to weight ratio. Unfortunately, a very big one, 20 to 14 only. That's a huge nerf here to the power to weight ratio on that Foch 155. 5, making it a lot slower. Still, you have that speed boost as well, so you still have that option of just pushing into the enemies, putting out a massive clip and falling back. I think that will be fine, although yeah, we will have to see how it eventually works out then. On top of that, you do get some view range nerf. Not really going to matter all too much in some armor changes, 180 to 200 on the cupola, 200 to 245, so enemies will definitely need heat and cannot penetrate you with AP anymore. That is going to be a big difference here, let's keep that in mind. Also the frontal plate, which can often get penetrated with AP by some tanks with high penetration, others need heat, but 180 to 200 is again a big change there. Definitely going to help this one get some more ricochets. Lower plate gets a bit of a nerf, but it's super small to be honest, so that's fine. Also, the other gun, yeah, there's another change here. Actually, the DPM also changes. Not the other gun. Wait. The other gun as well. The single shot gun, it just gets a slight alpha buff as well from 600 to 620. That one does not get any reload changes, so it will be a DPM buff to that one, while the autoloader gun does get a bit of a reload time nerf here. I'm not sure. I think the DPM should be about the same afterwards still, because of that alpha increase. I've not done the math for that, to be honest, but I think this one will be very much playable in the near future as well. I'm looking forward to it. Let's move on to that next tank here, or the next nation, which is the Chinese nation. Starting with a VZ-113 GFT, the tank that has been dominant in the tournament scene like crazy in the last couple of seasons. Finally, it gets a buff, a nerf. Sorry, it does get a nerf, a big one. First of all, engine power, 860 to 760. That's a big change here. Reload time, 14.38 to 14.77. Not a huge change, but still a nerf. Also, rotation speed does get nerfed significantly. Alpha damage gets a little bit of a buff actually, so also a DPM buff. No, actually that just evens out with the reload time changes over here. So DPM just staying roughly the same, but one thing I really have to point out here, the reactive armor is getting removed, and that is so good here for this one. I mean, just because I hated this tank having reactive armor. It was basically a heavy tank. It was too dominant. It was way too strong. Now it gets a nerf, so that will allow many other tanks to shine again. Next one, a VZ light tank. Let's just go over there. The VZ light tank is also one that is going to be very special. It does get, first of all, slight penetration nerf, which doesn't really matter at all, to be honest. Slight dispersion nerf as well, doesn't matter. View range buff from 270 to 280. Let's keep in mind that the batshit was really strong before at 285 meters plus ventilation system, increasing that even further. So the VZ light tank will probably maybe be the best spotting light tank in the game. Afterwards, we will still have to see the LT100 changes later on, or tomorrow actually. Also, the reload time gets a significant buff here. Half a second is a lot at this reload time here. Also, maximum speed in reverse gets enhanced by 4 kilometers per hour, but that is not it. We also get the gear oil provision, getting you 6% to the engine power and 6% to the traverse speed, 4 kilometers per hour on top for the maximum speed and the maximum reverse speed. So in total, you will get 28 kilometers per hour on the reverse speed, and you will be even faster. You get kind of like 70 kilometers per hour on a maximum forward speed. It will be super damn fast. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think. I'm looking forward to it. Next one here to the left will be the VZ-111-5A. Hit point increased by 50 hit points. Not too much either. Shot dispersion is going to be buffed a little bit. Powder rate ratio, slight nerf, barely noticeable. Rotation of the hull is going to be buffed as well. That's something definitely. It won't be a huge difference. Basically the same tank still. VZ121 then on the right side here gets a reload time nerf from 8.7 to 9.1 seconds. Yeah, not great, but it is a very strong tank at the moment, to be fair. And then it gets a rotation speed, turret speed rotation nerf. Slight one. Man, who wrote this thing? Power to rate ratio also gets a buff then, but just slight changes there that don't really matter. And it also gets a reactive armor, decreasing the damage taken by 27%. If used correctly, that can be very helpful, but still, you're having tungsten rounds and adrenaline. I'm not sure, maybe tungsten rounds and reactive armor will be the right choice for this tank then. So I think it might be just as strong, basically, maybe slightly stronger than it is right now because of reactive armor being quite useful for pushes. We will see. I think that's some good change here, making it kind of a heavy tank then. And lastly, let's move the camera once more. We do have that VZ113. This tank is already a very nice and strong heavium tank, a heavy that has good armor, good mobility, great DPM as well. And this one will also get some buffs still. Power to rate ratio just gets a slight nerf, but maximum health gets increased from 2.3k hit points to 2.4k hit points, which is actually just going to help this tank quite a bit, although it's just not a change that you notice every game, but more so on the statistics on average, I would say. And I think we can move on to the next slide of the Chinese tanks. Also the 121B, the medium tank of the Chinese nation, gets some interesting changes here. 50 hit points more, going to be useful. Not all too relevant still, but it will be useful. Power to rate ratio increase in some armor buff by quite a lot. If we are looking at this 240 to 252 on the turret and 120 to 130, not going to be noticeable on every game, but still on average you will perform better. And also keep in mind that this tank has a special speed boost, good DPM, nice accuracy. I really enjoy this tank already, and it will be even more useful. And we can move on. Let's go for the other medium first. Type 59 as a tier 8 medium. Also get some hit point buff, reload time buff, adaptive concealment. It's the same that the 121B already has. Getting you unspotted after only 7 seconds instead of the regular 10 seconds can be very helpful as well, although not necessarily always in each situation. Also, it does get some armor buff here to the sides, 80 to 87, and a bit of an armor buff to the front as well. Also going to help this tank definitely. Lastly, the 114 SP2. A tank that I only recently got, and I was just being so much in pain when playing this one. It can be nice because of the accuracy, but it does have basically no armor if you are facing anyone with a good penetration. It does get some armor changes, that's it. 175 to 185 to the flanks here, 290 to 300 to the front. I am not sure if this is going to make a huge difference against high penetration TDs. We will have to see. I think it won't change much about this one. It will still be pretty crap. But on the other hand, we are having some other big gun heavies getting nerfed, like the E100 big gun, and also the which one has it been? The VK72 gets a big DPM nerf. We will still have to wait for the changes to the 6CTP as well to see if this one's actually going to be benefiting from that. I think it will still be quite useless, to be honest. Next nation already, we are here for the British tanks, starting with the 215B 183, the most popular tank in the game, sadly, and therefore I am happy that it does get a nerf with the speed of the shell velocity getting a nerf here first of all. Slight one though, aim time getting a quite big nerf, 5.3 to 6.4. That's a big change here to the aim time. Also the shot dispersion actually gets a bit of a buff, but with that aim time I hope that people will hit you a lot less, so just screw the campers. They cannot do anything about you anymore. Let's not use any bad words here. All right, so next one is the, let's go for the FE405 first. FE405, the autoloader of the British nation. Autoloaders, Wargaming said should all be nerfed, same as TDs. So that's exactly what we are going to see here. Aim time nerf. It is already not too accurate. It does get a big nerf to the aim time. View range gets nerfed, doesn't really matter. The dispersion actually gets a slight buff here on a turret traverse, but still aim time, nah. It's currently one of the worst tanks, not worst, but worst tanks in my opinion, so I'm not really going to play this one all too much as I am already right now. Next one, FE217 Badger. As most of you will know, this tank is called the Badger. Does get a change, a bit of a buff here to the speed forward speed. Terrain crossing capacity gets buffed as well, at least on the hard terrain, so you're going to accelerate faster with that in mind. Also the rotation, that gets a change here, but that's quite a big nerf to the rotation. It has been very fast on the traverse speed, to be honest, so that's fair. It's a very strong TD at the moment, one of the strongest, so I think that's good for the balancing here. Some extra forward speed and acceleration will also definitely help this tank get into the hull down positions a little bit faster. View range nerf here won't really matter at all. FE215B heavy tank also gets a view range change, very slight buff, just 5 meters more. I don't know who came up with this. I don't think this will have any impact on the game at all. Hit points do get increased by 50, a very small impact. Aim time does get nerfed quite just a little bit, doesn't matter here, don't care about that. It will just basically keep its position, and I'm sorry I just did not really show it to you, but you see now here, yeah, the statistics again. Next page for the British tanks. Let's start on top here with the FV4202, that hash gun or hash tank. It does get some changes here, but that is actually the heat gun that gets some changes here, which gets a bit of a buff on the aim time. It gets a bit of a buff on the dispersion, and it does get a bit of a nerf on the penetration. So not a huge thing in my opinion. Hit points get a bit of a buff, 50 hit points more. Who cares? Vickers light tank gets some bigger changes again. Vickers light has been lacking for a long time. Previously it has been already very strong with a 350 alpha gun and high DPM, good turret armor. It has been super strong light tank. And since then it got nerfed, it had a big alpha nerf to 300 only and no DPM. And that is getting changed here. At least the DPM is changing first of all. DPM is getting a good buff here as well. Hit points also get a slight buff. Alpha damage increases, and you might be a little bit confused here. 300 260 to 300 350. What's the premium ammunition dealing more damage? That is because it receives hash as premium ammunition. So for people who are capable players, good players who do have good aiming, can use the ammunition wisely and in the correct moment, and this will be very helpful to put out more damage there. Also, it gets to be faster, power to rate ratio changes. Also, it gets to be more accurate on the aim time. Although the shot dispersion decreases, still you've got to keep in mind that you have the reticle calibration on this tank as well. The consumability, that it does decrease your dispersion and also the aim time a lot. So I think that will be very nice here. Penetration changes. Yes, of course, that looks weird because of the hash there. But still, it will be some nice change to that one. Terrain crossing capacity actually gets a bit of a nerf. So in that sense, actually, you might accelerate less, but still you're having power to rate ratio buff. Some real changes there. Will we have to see in game then how it actually is going to perform eventually. Next one, Super Conqueror. Super Conqueror gets some nerf on the aim time, first of all. And then it does get some gun dispersion coefficient after firing the gun. It gets a bit of a nerf on the gun dispersion, ever so slightly. Speed on the reverse speed does get a bit of a nerf as well. Reload time gets buffed actually. Dispersion also gets, that's a slight buff here as well. All of this doesn't really matter all too much apart from the aim time. but it gets reactive armor on top. Again, 27% damage reduction. So I think it will be very good here for pushing in, because it is already kind of a super heavy that has a good amount of hit points, has great armor to the top, it has great gun depression, it has good side armor as well. Only big issue is the lower plate that is quite large. But with this one, with these changes, you might be able to just survive the pushes a lot better. I think that will be very nice here for the S-Conq. Might play a bigger role then, especially for win rate farming and also for tournaments. Potentially, we will have to see how that's going to look like right there. Moving on to the Chieftain, some very interesting changes to this tank. One of my favorite tanks as well for a long time already, because it has great mobility and great DPM and also good accuracy and high penetration HE. You do get some big changes to the Chieftain here, as it gets hash as the secondary ammunition, as a premium ammunition, instead of the APCR that it had previously. With that, you will have an alpha damage of 470 then, while the HE damage or HE penetration gets reduced in the value there from 110 to 80, but still you will be able to use that HE, and you will also be able to use a lot of hash on this tank. That is going to be its main strength. On top of that, it does get the tungsten rounds as well. The first hash tank with tungsten rounds, as far as I know. That means you're going to have 15% higher damage per shot on average. So 470 plus the 15%, so you get about 500 damage as well. I think about 515 as well as on the HE standard there. I'm not exactly sure right now. But with this one, you can basically just almost kill an enemy medium in 4 shots then with that hash. So I think that will be a lot of fun, especially since you're also going to be faster. Gear oil provision, again 6% to the engine power and traverse speed, 4 km per hour on top to the maximum speed forwards and backwards. For that it gets some nerf though to the rotation speed here, 29 instead of 33.5. That is noticeable, but it might be balanced out by the gear oil provision again. And we are also getting some accuracy changes here, quite some bad aim time nerf actually. Also dispersion nerf on the turret rotation. Not a great combination to get a dispersion nerf when getting hash, where you have to aim better and shoot more accurately, otherwise the hash is going to be absolutely useless. But still, I think this will be a very interesting tank. I'm going to play it a lot on the next update. So especially for the experienced players, again, like on the Vickers, who know how to use ammunition properly in the right moment, Chieftain will be the tank to go for. And do we have another slide? Nope, that's it already for this one. So thanks for watching. This has been part 2 of 3. Tomorrow we still get some more changes announced then. I'm looking forward to it. Let me know what are your favorite tanks down in the comments below.